Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Michael Glaspie. Michael, man, he's a Green Beret. I mean, he has learned a lot in the military in different situations that have helped him to scale his business and move forward in real estate very fast. He has numerous businesses that are vertically integrated, and we're going to get into that. It's very neat just hearing him talk about creative solutions, how he thinks about deals, when he hears a no, and ways that he finds ways to make it happen. And so it's still beneficial to both parties. But we talked about this, he talks about 7 streams of income and them being vertically integrated, and so being able to scale, but not being distracted, partnering, with people who have great strengths that you can leverage. Just going to be a few things that he's going to go into today, but he's a best-selling author of The Elite Investor and Military Approach to Real Estate Problem Solving. And I mean, he just continues to practice real estate and focus on educating others. He's built numerous different platforms, whether it's social media education and military cash flow, that's helping other people in the military get started in real estate business. So you're going to learn a lot from the show. Have a blessed day. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the show. I know you have a unique background and looking forward to hearing a little about that and letting the listeners learn a little more about you and how you got to where you're at now in the real estate business. And you have some great skill sets that everyone needs on their team, that's for sure. But let's back up a little bit. Tell us who you are and a little bit about that transition from that position, which I want you to share about to the real estate.
Absolutely. So first off, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. To the audience out there, a quick introduction. My name is Michael Glaspie. I served in the military for a little over 11 years. And when I was in the military, I was actually in special operations as a Green Beret. It wasn't until about 2015 when I had a significantly bad incident during a deployment that I decided that there has to be something else. And as many of you may or may not be aware, not only in the military, but many people who have a job that are journeying in entrepreneurship, you have that fear factor of, hey, what happens when I lose this paycheck, right? What happens when I lose this security? Well, I decided that I already owned one property and I was house hacking it out, meaning that I had roommates renting out other rooms, reducing my mortgage obligation. So I decided to explore that a little bit more because it was something I was already doing. It seemed like an easy way to get started in entrepreneurship. So I started wholesaling. I started doing seller financing deals. I started doing subject to or deed in lieu of deals. And I quickly saw that I was able to create just as much money doing real estate as I could being in the active duty military. So I decided, okay, well, let me take it up one step further. I ended up doing a live-in flip with the VA loan, another creative approach. But the realtor sold it for, we sold the property, but the commission that I paid out was somewhere around $12,000. To me at the time, $12,000 was a significant amount. So I said, all right, why don't I just get licensed? So we got licensed, partnered up with a good partner of mine. She's still my business partner today. We created a real estate team. Lo and behold, just a few years later, I was able to create enough money to completely replace my active duty income. We now have a real estate team that does anywhere between 20 and 30 transactions every month, working with investors. I personally now own a little over 130 rental doors. I have a education company targeted towards veteran members, service members, and I have a hotel syndication company as well, all within a very short time span.
Nice. Now, I appreciate you sharing that, Michael. It's just interesting. I just interviewed, I've interviewed numerous folks, that have been military, first responders, including myself, with a background in both. And I just, it's just neat, just that drive, the things you're taught, the things you learn, especially while in combat, that's just like, man, the mindset, right, that you gain in situations like that have helped so many to become entrepreneurs and be able to, you're going to get knocked down, right, as an entrepreneur. And it's all about how many times you can get get back up. And it's interesting, those that have already been in those situations like yourself. And thank you again for your service. Always want to thank our men and women that are serving our country. And so grateful for that. Well, you transitioned from the military, you built this amazing business, you have scaled very fast. Let's jump into like your unique ability though on that team, the thing that really makes Michael tick and that you're so good at.
Yeah. So one of the things that every service member has out there, everybody who served in the military, and I am sure every first responder has the same thing. We're told to get things done no matter what, right? With whatever resources that we have. And a lot of people seem to think that in the movies, when they see all these laser guns and that every single one of us has jetpacks and all the best equipment in the world, that's not the case. Sometimes we have guns that are, Vietnam era guns. We got to go to battle with them, right? That's a little exaggeration. But my point is, we are taught as service members and first responders to be resourceful. It's not about the resources that we have per se. It's about being resourceful with what we do have, right? And that opens up your mind to a lot of creativity. And so we were it became ingrained in us to solve problems quickly and efficiently and just get the mission accomplished. And I was able to translate that from the military times into entrepreneurship, right? Into being a business owner, into being a real estate investor. And so what I bring to the team, and I do have several partnerships, and to be quite honest, people can feel how you want to feel. I personally feel that you are not able to accomplish anything without a team around you, period, right? And so the one thing that I can contribute to the team is the creative approach to a lot of our hurdles, our obstacles, right? Our next ventures, our expansions, and things of that nature. And I truly believe that once you start to understand that aspect of it, Jim Rohn says a quote, that you are compensated in direct proportion to the size of the problem that you solve. And I embody that. I love that. And so I'm always looking for the next big problem and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not doing Elon Musk problems. I'm not trying to go to Mars yet, but it's still fun for me.
No, I love that. Just the mindset, right? Hey, before you even see the problem, you have the mindset that I can figure it out, right? That goes so far. And you're compensated in direct proportion to the problems you're able to solve. I don't think I got it exactly right, but close. That's a great quote. So, your ability is that the creative solutions, right? Can you give us some examples of maybe some deals or things where you've had to put that into play and let's talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that it hurts me the most is when entrepreneurs start their journey and they feel like there's only one way to do anything, right? They read it in a book, they heard it on a podcast, and they say, oh, I must. Here's a perfect example. When we get into real estate on the smaller scale, which most of us do, we hear that wholesaling is the primary way to get started. For those who don't know what wholesaling is you simply put a property under contract, you assign that contract for a small fee. The problem with that is, in order for you to do that, you still have to lead generate. You still have to have a buyer's list on the back end. You still have to know how to run numbers to make sure that it actually makes sense to everybody. So there are some skill sets in there. Now, here's the problem. You go in there and you might hear something like this. Oh, I can't accept that price that you're offering, Mr. or Mrs. Wholesaler, because I still owe this much money. And in your mind, you completely shut off and you say, I couldn't make a deal. And you walk away. In my mind, I got triggered right there. Oh, you owe how much? Let me think of another solution. Okay. And so that actually happened to me when I found my first deal, which was a subject to or a deed in lieu of. To give you a broad scope, what that means is the mortgage itself stays in the original seller's name, but the deed, the ownership was transferred over to me. Now, that's a crazy situation for sure, but all the stars aligned. And because I was thinking creatively, I was able to acquire this property. What I paid for it was only $1,800, $1,800. That was the cost of the recording fees to get it switched over to me. That's it. I rented it out. I made about $175 a month free cash flow. So that was after debt, after management, so forth and so on. And at the end of year 2, I sold it and I kept all the profit, which was roughly about $13,000. So you can see how being creative, I was able to turn $1,800 into, somewhere around that $17,000 mark all in. By being able to do that, that was my first subject to. I did that again. And that second deal that I did was actually the one that allowed me to become financially free in the beginning because it was a duplex this time. So now I was able to do the subject to, house hack, and rent out one side. to really accelerate that. So you can see immediately how just on a small scale, how creativity can allow you to take leaps ahead of, I'm not going to necessarily call it competition, but of maybe your internal competition where you feel like, I'm going so slow. Just one or two creative deals within that portfolio can allow you to accelerate much faster.
Yeah, I think it goes even a lot deeper. Just like I said earlier, though, your mindset of not being so quick to jump past that opportunity, right? And actually be thinking about, hey, what are other ways that we can make this happen? And I feel like so many of us have probably had many amazing opportunities or deals in our grasps, and we quickly thought it wouldn't work, and we just went on to the next thing. Right. We didn't give it enough time. We didn't really think through this specific opportunity or how we could make it work before we just cut it off and moved on to the next thing. Sometimes we have to learn that the hard way, no doubt about it. But what about, then you scaled though, you also have the hotel syndication company and the social media education. I mean, like you have numerous things happening, take us from that duplex then that, hey, allowed you to have financial freedom to, where you're at today.
Absolutely. So I studied business for my undergraduates, and then I utilized the GI Bill with the military to go for my MBA as well over at Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill. And the reason why is because I'm always looking to improve myself, but in the facet of business, because to me, business is very intriguing, right? When you look at real estate, a lot of times people are so concerned with what does the contract look like? What do the numbers look like? How do you close the deal? So forth and so on. And that's perfectly fine. And that is, it's an important factor of it. But holistically, real estate is a business. It truly is. And when you start to scale your portfolio, you're now starting to look at the portfolio as a whole. So we're looking at, all right, what is my loan to value, right? Or my debt to equity ratio on the entire portfolio? What is my return on the entire portfolio? So forth and so on. And at a certain point in time, you're going to have to transition from studying real estate to studying business. So as I was doing that, I was starting to see that there's a lot of correlations between just real estate holdings, right? Real estate sales, which is great, and a lot of other things. Then I realized that everybody says it, well, at least all of the gurus, if you will, that you must have multiple streams of income. They say the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. And when you start to realize that the streams of income are much easier to obtain when they're all vertically integrated. What do I mean by that? All right, great. Well, if I have a real estate sales company, and then, for example, a property management company, and then a holding company, well, now I'm getting paid 3 ways from the same client, right? It's vertically integrated. So I started to experiment with more opportunities to scale, but that wouldn't distract me too much from my primary breadwinner, which was sales at the moment, right? And so I was able to partner. Again, partnership is key for me. I was able to partner with some amazing people that allowed me to contribute my strength, right? Leverage my weaknesses. And so it was a lot easier for me to scale in that regard because I didn't have to necessarily build it all from the ground up by myself, right? Which some people feel like they have to do that. And I think that's just a hindrance in your mindset for that holds you back, more often than not. But yeah, so just took it one step at a time and allowed them each to kind of organically scale. But the best part, as I mentioned, is they're all vertically integrated. So as I work on one, it actually benefits the other. It makes it much easier to spread my time and energy among them.
I love that. I didn't really see that coming either. I appreciate you bringing that up, like the 7 streams of income and thinking through that. But you mentioning like being vertically integrated with those streams of income. Would you say there's any more risk there also? As far as like if something happens in one business, it's going to affect the others as well.
Absolutely. And there's always risk in business, right? And as an entrepreneur, hey, we know that, right? We signed up for that. We want it. We got a little screw loose. But although there are risks that it could affect multiple businesses, you're also hedging against risk because let's say I'm the property manager and the sales. So I sell them the property and then I manage the property. Great. Now I'm getting a little bit of residual income as I'm managing them, but then they turn around and they want to leave. Well, if they go off and leave and buy another property from another agent, they may not use us. That's fine. But because we're vertically integrated, we may be able to offer something such as, hey, buy from me, break your lease for free, right? Just a fancy word to say, hey, I'm going to incentivize you to use this service here. and so yes, there is risk, but you can hedge against it because there's more creative solutions that you can put in towards how do I maximize the efficiency of operations and maximize income potential.
Love that. Speak to, though, like you mentioned, you wanted to scale and create these other streams of income, but not get distracted, right? And that's another way. It's great to be vertically integrated, or all these things that are kind of working together in a big sense. But how did that start to happen? How did you pick the next stream of income or next business you wanted to pursue? Was it just by need? Was it? How did those different things come about?
That's actually a great question. So when I first started out, I was an investor first before I ever became an agent. What I realized was my ability to scale was only limited to my imagination. So I started getting creative, but then I realized that, hey, extra money would not hurt to be able to scale faster. And when I did that live and flip and I saw what the agent made, I imagined what I can do with $12,000. If I've already built, at that point in time, I think it was like a 7 or 8 door portfolio in about a year and some change. And it was basically bootstrapping with very little money. If I had $12,000, I'd be able to buy a hotel, right? Or an apartment building in my mind. So at that point in time, I looked at what the obstacle was, the barrier to entry as far as getting into license, and then what would be the benefits of it, right? So how difficult is it to get in, and what are the benefits if I do actually get into it? I was able to see that the barrier of entry was very low, wouldn't take much time, wouldn't take much money. And the turnaround on one of my property flips, I could save $12,000. Therefore, the return on that investment would have been, it's easy decision at that point. So I went ahead and moved forward with it. As I continue to move forward with any other opportunity, I look at what is the barrier to entry? What is my cost when it comes to money and time commitment? And then what would be the benefit of it on the back end? Now that sounds selfish, and I know it sounds that way, but everybody who has spent a day or two in business understands that when you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else. And so I have to be very protective of my time and my energy, because especially if I'm partnering with somebody, if my partner is 110% invested in this and for them it's make or break, but I'm only 10% vested in it, I can't do that to my partner. I can't do it, right? So those types of those types of factors came into the decision-making process for sure. But I always wanted to make sure that it was a smooth entry, smooth-ish, right? But it served a purpose, put it like that. I want to make sure that it served a purpose and I wasn't just out there testing everything along the way.
No doubt. I love that. Just the importance of partnerships, right? And being all in, and mutually working together towards those goals. No doubt about it. Leveraging the strengths, of others,
Yes.
Like you mentioned earlier too. And I think, seeing strengths in people and being able to help work together to bring that out has been something we've done. It's helped us to scale as well. Tell us a little bit about your syndication business and why, tell us how that started and kind of where you're at in that business.
Yeah, absolutely. Good buddy of mine, Danny, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, Mike, I have an opportunity for you." And he brought us all in. It was a small little powwow. It was about 4 of us. And he pitched starting the syndication company, right? And at that point in time, I was very comfortable with syndication. I've worked with several clients that did syndication. I was a limited partner on a few different deals. So it wasn't a new concept for me, but I wanted to see his approach to it. He said that we were going to focus on small apartment buildings and hotels. And that's where it kind of pinged to me. I was like, hotels? Why would we focus on hotels, especially during this the pandemic time where, they said hotels were going out of style. But he brought up several good points. One, the biggest thing is Warren Buffett's quote, "When others are being greedy, you should be fearful. And when others are fearful, you should be greedy." And at that point in time, everybody was fearful of hotels. Everybody was running away. 2, the asset type of hotel, we were going to focus on limited service hotel. So what does that mean? It means basically continental breakfast. We don't really have room service. We don't have dry cleaning. The reason why we focused on that is because the income streams mirror that of an apartment complex. So when it comes to underwriting, instead of doing long-term fixed lease for an apartment, we just do average daily rate, right? If seasonal daily rate or whatever the case is, but we don't have other varying factors like these bigger hotels do. 3, we're going to focus on franchise hotels. Why? Because there's a whole structure model in place. We get basically to leverage their marketing, their social media presence, their membership rewards, and all that other good stuff. And there is a requirement as far as size, location, and everything else that also acts as a hedge against some of those other external factors that we might be looking into. And so once we started seeing that, we were able to see that there were a lot of mom and pop owners of these smaller hotels, which fits us perfectly, because now we can go in and negotiate these different creative acquisitions, loan assumptions, all seller finance deals, so forth and so on, and then syndicate the equity piece, which opened up the floodgates for us as we started moving forward.
Awesome. No, I just think it's neat to have other people like bring opportunities in front of the team, right? And then and you say, discuss that, right? And say, okay, well, maybe this is something we can pursue. We can create something here, another stream of income, like we've been talking about. What about just speak to that a little bit as far as even the team dynamic and the distraction component, like you talked about. How do you like start another business like that, but not be so distracted, obviously, and pull too much away from something else that's important that you're working on or the other team members are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about just defining clear roles and responsibilities from the beginning, right? So part of that was to say, okay, each individual is going to have their role, right? So I have a specific role on the team. Great. Danny has his, Zeke, so forth and so on. Then from there, once we understand our roles and our outlines, we set up I call it a battle rhythm. It's just the military in me. But basically, how many times out of the month, out of the week, whatever, are we going to sit down and sync up on activities? What are the steps? What's the standard operating procedure? Again, it's more military in me. But what are the steps that we're going to take every time we have a new offer to review, right? When is the deadline from the time that we receive the offer to the time that we have our first initial team meeting? Right. And once we kind of lay all of those things out up front, it takes away all of the stress of, where do I put it on my calendar? Oh, you called me on Saturday night. I have to reply by tomorrow. It takes away all that stress because it's all outlined in the beginning and we all come to an agreement on it first, because it's not just what I want or what you want or what, the other partner may want. It's what we all agree with. And it makes it a lot easier.
Michael, taking a shift just a little bit, I wanted to ask you, with all these businesses mostly related around real estate, right? In some capacity, how do you prepare for a downturn?
So it's all through the operational efficiencies, in my personal opinion. This is what I do. So as I'm looking at my holding company, right, all of my actual properties, I'm making sure that I have a high enough equity position that if for whatever reason this downturn came and we needed to do something to reduce our holding costs, our mortgage payments and so forth and so on, I might be able to refinance and drop the payments somewhere or sell off some of these properties and take some of the equity to use in other places. So I'm looking for a specific equity position in most of my holdings. Another thing is I choose the markets very strategically. And as I'm looking at these markets, each market for me has a different strategy. So where some people say, hey, look, I'm looking for buy and hold long-term across the globe. I have certain markets that I'm going to have my Airbnbs in. I own several Airbnbs. I have other markets that I have student rentals in. I have other markets that are long-term holds. I have other markets that I do flips, and I have other markets where I do the syndication. And for me, again, as I mentioned, you start off on a level of where we're doing one deal a year, two deals a year. But once you get to the point where you're actually, you have a considerable amount of assets, it's now a business. It's now a business. And that's why studying business is so imperative to your success in the long run as a real estate investor, especially if you intend to scale, because you can see it holistically, how you can hedge against downturns, how you can hedge against risks across the entire portfolio to allow some to float others if needed.
Do you have, I agree. I mean, like business, we're not just like born with business skills, right? For the most part,
no.
Most of us, have learned things that have helped us to get there. And like you said, you must study business. Is there a good resource that you've found? We're not all probably going to go get, MBAs or, numerous master's degrees,
Right.
Those things, but any kind of resource that you could recommend?
That's actually a really great question. So I'm going to give two book recommendations. One is more actual tax strategy. The other one is more just mindset when it comes to business. The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. I'm sure several of your listeners have probably listened to it. That's not going to give you a lot of strategies on how to actually run a business, but it will give you the right mindset as far as understanding who you need as your first hire, how to hire, some of the struggles you're going to face. And so to allow you to at least set the expectation foundation up front so you're not extremely frustrated every step of the way. The second book is Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. The reason why this is so important, he states in that book, and I love this quote, He says, and I'm going to mess it up here, but basically the government tells you what they want you to do, and then they reward you for it, and they call that a tax incentive. And if you look at business or entrepreneurs, we get a lot of tax write-offs simply because the government supports it. That alone, if you understand that the government supports it, listen to me, the government supports it. That means you're going to have taxes, IRS code, which is a government entity that's going to be able to help you out. There's going to be SBA, Small Business Association, that's going to give you endless amount of resources, business planning advice, loan products, and everything else. The government supports it, so the government will provide additional resources. That is the key there. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of resources out there, but start off with a few good books. If you really decide that you want to dig into it, SBA is a good point. And then, I mean, there's a lot more. You guys.
Sure. Yeah. Hiring and taxes are definitely something every business owner needs to at least have some education about, right? Especially the hiring, and we can find experts to help with taxes, but you got to know some things. And great books, by the way. Michael, do you have any predictions for the real estate market or industry over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, predictions, I would say that I believe the foreclosures are going to start to come up over the next 12 months or so. We've been in that eviction moratorium phase for so long. Now that COVID is starting to lift a little bit, I'm expecting the courthouses to restart that process. As we're all aware, every market's eviction process is going to be a little bit different, but we are expecting that within the next 12 months, we're going to start to see some of those evictions, potentially some of those forbearances come back to bite some of these landlords, and foreclosure will start to increase. With that being said, if the foreclosures are going to have to be abundant and last for a little bit additional time in order for the market to actually stabilize. So I'm thinking maybe in the next 24 months, the residential housing market might stabilize. But as we're all aware, real estate is in cycles, and you can always make money in real estate, no matter what the cycle is. You just have to be prepared for it.
What about some daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
Absolutely. So one of the books that we require all of our agents to read before joining the team is Miracle Morning Millionaires by Hal Elrod and David Osborne. It talks about 6 essential habits that every millionaire does, is what they say. I've incorporated most of them. The acronym is SAVERS, right? So silence would be something like meditation, yoga, just your own personal time. A is affirmations. You write down your affirmations. V is visualize. And this can be on a vision board, a computer board, or whatever the case may be. E is exercise. It can be 10, 15 minutes, just something to get your blood pumping. R is reading, smooth 10 pages of a hardback book, not an audio book. And then S is a fancy word. It's scribe, and it just means write or journal. I try to incorporate all 6. I honestly do, but I do at least get 3 or 4 in every single day. That just helps me kind of go through the day and maintain consistency.
Again, listeners, I mean, they've heard me talk about this so much, Michael. It's like early, rising early, having that morning routine, having it structured. Often it's like I'm not a morning person, but so many people, successful entrepreneurs in real estate and other industries, man, it's so common. They're up early and they're doing some very specific things with that early morning time, and it's like that consistency, right? It's that consistency over a long period of time that it feels like in the first days and weeks that it's not going anywhere, but man, after 6 months, you've really accomplished a lot. And so, Michael, what about your best source for meeting new investors right now?
For meeting new investors, guys, I have to give a shout out to Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets, I can't knock them. It's a great source. It's a great forum. It's a great community. A lot of times newer investors are going to go on there for information, but to be quite honest, we haven't paid for leads yet at all, right? And we've done over 400 some odd transactions in the last 2 years. And we haven't paid for leads primarily because we go and we network, we find these other free resources. In addition to Bigger Pockets, what we've done is we've created a meetup, a local meetup. We call it Pints and Properties. We get together with the local real estate community. We have a guest speaker, non-pitchy, non-advertiser, nothing like that. And we just communicate. Through there, we've been able to find some more investors. Some of them a little bit more sophisticated, may already have a decent portfolio. And so my recommendation to your audience, if you're listening, if you guys can't find a local meetup, then create one, right? Look for what you're looking for. There's no reason why you can't create one regardless of your experience. That part is irrelevant. Create the environment if that's what you're looking for.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
The ability to think creatively. In my opinion, there is never a no. It's only a how. How can we do it? Now, once I figure out how I can do it, I can decide, is it worth it or not? But
Sure.
I should always at least find the how.
And how do you like to give back?
So we give back several different ways. One, I try to give back through my YouTube channel and through my education platform and military cash flow. We try to provide as much free value as we can there. But I'm also a very big proponent of the Green Beret Foundation. It's a great nonprofit organization that helps Green Berets and their families in times of crisis. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about them, I do highly recommend just checking them out.
Awesome. Michael, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and just hear your mindset, really, that there's just creative ways, like figuring out how to make things happen. I think that should encourage us and the listeners, to think like that, right? Not be so quick to just pass over maybe a potential big opportunity when you were told no first. Maybe there's another way. And I think you're a good inspiration to help us think about that. Even the 7 streams of income that's vertically integrated, I don't think I hear that too often, from entrepreneurs, like, having that many, but even thinking through them being vertically integrated. Often they may have 1 or 2 streams that are similar like that, and then something completely random else, and so I want to think about that myself, and so just think about how I could apply that. But thank you again for your time and your service. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Absolutely. So you guys can find me on all social media platforms, right? So on Instagram, michael.s.glaspie. On Facebook, Michael Glaspie. You guys can also reach out to the real estate company, fivepillarsrealty.com. You guys can find the hotel syndication company, archimedesinternational.com, or again, on the podcast and on the YouTube channel at militarycashflow.com.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.